What's up everyone, this is Pedram, and in this video we will continue our discussion about GitHub and sync setting and how we can do it in VS Code. So last time, let me actually pull up the last video. In the part 1, we talked about what is GitHub, how we can create a new GitHub account. We saw how we can initialize a repository from a folder within the VS Code editor. We saw that how we can publish branch from VS Code, and how we can basically make commit and push those changes to a repository, and finally how we can clone a repository. And we did all these things from VS Code without typing any git command in the terminal or without using the GitHub desktop. Today we want to continue this discussion by going over, okay, now let's say we clone a repository. If it is your own repository, when you make some changes to that repository in your local computer, you can push those changes to your GitHub account, right? Because you are the author, you're the owner of that repository. However, if you clone a repository from someone else, from some other developer, you don't have permission to make changes, right? If you make changes, you can save them on your local computer, but you cannot push it to the GitHub repository of that third person, unless you have permission to do that, right? So we are going to talk about the concept of stashing. So instead of committing those changes that you made on your local computer to the third-party GitHub account, we want to save them on our computer, and we want to be able to continue pulling from that person's repository without any interruption. So this is the concept of stashing. So if you Google stashing in Git, basically the Git Stash is a command that takes your uncommitted changes, both stage or on stage, and save them away for later use. So basically the idea is that let's go ahead and use some other people's GitHub repository, and maybe you want to make changes to their codes, but you do not want to necessarily contribute to their codes. You want to keep it on your local computer. However, you want to make sure that if that person is making is just publishing new codes and new files, you are able to continue pulling from that repository without any interruption, right? So this is the idea of stashing. And if you're wondering what do we mean by stage and onstage, and what are these changes in GitHub? Well, you can think of the staging as a checkpoint, right? So imagine you make some changes to a repository, either your own repository or someone else's repository. You can stage those changes. It means that you can make a checkpoint, right? You can just put a checkpoint and then say, okay, and then add some comment to that without publishing it on the GitHub. So without even committing to the GitHub repository. Then if you want, you can stage or unstage those changes, basically put those checkpoints, and in the next level you can commit those changes. And in the next level, you can commit those changes to the GitHub repository. If you're the owner, you can push it to the repository. If you're not the owner, you can stash them to make sure that you have your own version saved on your computer. All right. So now let's go to VS Code and see all these things in action. All right. Now that we know how we can clone a repository, let's go ahead and do that in VS Code. Remember, if you go down to click on this account, you will see that the GitHub accounts that are already logged in is this PJ GitHub tutorials. This is the one that we created together last time, right? So just make sure that you are logged in to using the right GitHub account, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this folder, and I want to clone from a repository. So it says that clone from GitHub. If I say clone from GitHub, it's going to open my own GitHub. And as you can see, there's only one repository there, right? So this is the one that we created last time, workspace_YouTube. But in this exercise, we don't want to clone our own repository. We want to work with some other people's repository. So I need to provide basically this means that we need to provide a link here. So let's go ahead and provide from a URL link. and this is the accounts that I want to clone. This is the repository that I want to clone to my local computer, right? Remember, my account, my GitHub account is PJ GitHub Tutorials, and this is someone else account, even though this is myself, but it's my other account, right? So I wanted to basically clone this repository. Let's say machine learning USU or machine learning. It really doesn't matter. Let's do this one. I'm gonna go ahead and save the URL. I can copy this from here or click on code and copy the URL. Okay. Now I go back to my VS Code, paste the URL here. It's gonna take a little time, but and of course you have to give it some address first. I'm gonna say okay, put it in my desktop, and now that's the repository is being cloned to my local computer. Okay. All right, so do you want to open it here? Yes. So now I have access to this GitHub repository in my local computer using the VS Code. Okay, so this is, guys, remember, this is the account that I'm logged in, and this is the repository from someone else. So it means that if I make changes here, I cannot push it, right? I have to basically stash it if I want to keep track of those changes, right? So let's see, how does that work? For example, I'm going to go ahead and make a new file here and call it main.py. So this is a Python file, and so we say print, this is a test. Of course, if I want to go ahead and and commit it, I can, but so let's say adding test, so I can commit it. Well, I have to first save it and then commit it. But if I want to push it, I cannot push it to this repository because this repository does not belong to me, right? So let's go ahead and try to do that. So let's push it. I cannot do that because I don't have permission. It's asked, do you want to fork this repository? Well, no, because if I fork it, then it means that I will not be so the repository will, when I push the repository, it's not going to be automatically updated. What if the author of this repository is putting some new materials here, that if I have forked this repository, I don't get those new materials, right? So this is not a way that we want to do that. The way that we want to do that is to basically stash those changes. So I'm going to go ahead and undo my commit. Okay, so I can go ahead and unstage these changes. So let's go unstage them. And now this file is untracked. So this basically means that Git does not know anything about, that repository does not know anything about this file yet, right? Because we have not committed, we have not pushed it, we don't have the access to push it, we are not authorized to push it. So we want to stash it. So in order to stash that, we have to go to these three dots and then just look for stash, and make sure you stash this option, which includes untracked, because remember, this is an untracked file, right? Git does not, this repository has no idea what is this file. So I'm going to go ahead and do stash include untracked. We need to give it a name, so I'm going to call it I'm adding main.py for my future reference, and then press enter. So when I press enter, look at that. I don't see this the change anymore here. And if I go back to the folder, I cannot find this main.py, because remember, it has been locally. So this is the thing that I did locally. I didn't want to push it to the repository, right? And I can revert those changes if I want, but the good news is that now is that I can pull this repository multiple times, right? So for example, the author of the repository is going to make some changes here, and then I want to be able to pull those changes without being interrupted, right? And down the road, if I want to get back my main.py that I generated, I can go to this source control and go to stash and then apply the latest slash. Or if you have multiple slash, you can do apply stash and then here basically find it from the list. So I have a test and I have this adding the main. So I'm going to click on this adding main. If I click on that, this main file, main.py, is going to come back to the folder. There you go. So if I go back here, I have access to my file here. So this is a very useful way for you to basically make changes to someone else's repository without committing and pushing to their repository. Okay, so I can go ahead and stash it for future use. I say stash and stash adding main.py. All right. Some other thing that you should know about GitHub. So what if, imagine you're done with someone else's repository and you want to remove it from your local computer properly. So you should remove it first. So let's go to the source control and then go to remove the remote. There's only one here, so so now we have removed it from VS Code. Then we can go back to the folder and basically remove the folder from our computer as well. So I can right click on any of them and say reveal in the file explorer. So this is where it is, the machine learning repository. So I can go ahead and delete it now. Okay, I can go back to my VS Code and close the working space by opening up the palette or Control-Shift-P and close the workspace. All right, so that's pretty much it, how we can stash things. And now let's talk about sync setting. So what do we mean by sync setting? For example, you're working on a project and you have installed multiple extensions on your laptop, and you have installed, let's say, Python extensions, some aesthetic extensions, themes, icons. You made lots of changes, right? And you change the settings. So for example, if you do Shift Enter, the interactive window is going to pop up and you run the code there, and etc., etc. So if you change your computer, or if you change your laptop, or basically, or simply you go from office, you go to home, you don't want to do all these steps one more time. You wish there was a way to synchronize all these settings behind the scene for you, right? So it means that as long as you're connected to your VS Code using the same GitHub repository, you will see the same setting on any VS Code, on any laptop or computer that you're working with. So this is going to be a very useful, because it's going to synchronize all the settings that you have. So let me go ahead and open a project. I can clone my own repository. So this is the one that we created together, workspace_YouTube. So, well, actually, I don't want to clone it. I want to open it. So let's open that folder, workspace YouTube, select that folder. And because this folder has already been on my GitHub account, automatically it's going to connect to this, be connected to my basically source control. Okay, so, and it seems that from the last time we made a change that we haven't pushed it to the repository, and yeah, it seemed, yeah, whatever it was. So we can go ahead and commit it. Let's say, I don't know, just make a random name. I'll commit test, Control Enter, and then I can push it to the repository because I'm the owner of this repository. All right, so now let's talk about that sync setting. For that, you have to install the extension first. So we'll just search for sync setting or setting sync, and we can go ahead and install it. And again, this is another popular extension which has been downloaded more than 3 million times at the time that you're watching this video. So let's go ahead and install it. Okay, let's go through the documentation, because we will see how we should use this sync setting. Basically, everything you need to do is it's going to be done using 2 shortcut keys. You can upload all these changes using Shift-Alt+U, and you can download all these changes on a new computer doing Shift-Alt-D. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it a try. All right, so if I do Shift-Alt-U, and if this is the first time that you're doing it, you will be navigated to this page. Let me actually close the extensions, and you can log in with your GitHub. You can edit the configuration. So right now you shouldn't have anything here. There is no token, there is no GitHub URL. So we have to add them. There is no gist ID or gist ID. So let's actually log in with GitHub. And now it is, we want to give it the authorized this user. Success. We can now close it and go back. Okay. Well, what is happening is that, the VS Code is trying to save all these settings. This extension basically wants to save the settings somewhere, right? And the place that is being saved, it's on under your gist account, right? So gist is basically a GitHub repository where you can save all these settings. So if you go back to your GitHub account and under your name, you will see that there is you have your gist, right? So right now there is nothing here because we haven't connected these things with each other. So the VS Code is not connected to our GitHub account yet, the settings sync. And we are doing that. So it's here says that, okay, select your existing gist. We don't have any gist yet. And if you don't have any gist, you can skip it for now. And okay, now as you can see, a gist has been created and uploaded to our GitHub account as a repositories, right? So these are the extensions that are being added. So these are the one that we installed in the past videos. And if you're wondering where is this located at, you have a gist ID. Well, actually, let's look at the configuration. Right now, you have a gist ID, you have a token, and on your GitHub account, you can actually find them. If I refresh this page now I have a gist, right? So this is under my GitHub account, and there's this cloud setting. So this has been saved here. So 43 seconds ago, there's a gist saved on my as a GitHub repository. Okay, so this means that all the settings, if I click on it, all the settings that I have on the VS Code is being saved now. The extensions are here. And so this means that if I use this GitHub account on another computer and turn the sync on, automatically all these things are going to be synced, right? Okay, let me show you what is being synced right now. If I scroll down, go to the, let me actually close this one to see better. So go to sign into sync setting. I need to sign in with my GitHub account. Now I can go back to my VS Code. Okay, then it says that the setting sync is on, and we can look at the configuration, we can show the setting, we can look at what is being synced, and we can say, okay, sync now or turn it off. So let's see what is being synced now. So these are the folders that are being synced, and inside each of them there's a JSON file. So for example, this is the name of the extensions which is being synced. These are the snippets, and these are, let's say these are the settings. So for example, remember, in the previous videos we said, okay, send selection to interactive window, we set it equal to true. So right now it's in our setting.json. So it means that if I sync my other computer, this setting is going to be automatically loaded there as well. So, and this is our sync gist ID. If I go back to my gist account, so this is the gist. So this is the gist information that I have. I can find the ID and etc. here. Okay, so now I think everything is ready. This means that from now on, because the sync is on, if you go ahead and turn on the sync on any other computer, everything will be automatically synced. And let's say you make a change, right? So you make a change to the setting, you install a new packet, new extension, whatever, and you wanted to push that setting to your gist repository, right? For example, I want to go ahead and add a new extension. I don't know, maybe add an extension for R. Let's go ahead and install it. So this is a new change that I make to my extensions, right? So now R is being installed. And I can go ahead and make a change to the setting as well. So by opening up the setting, just as an example, I can say, okay, send selection, and just uncheck this one. So I made a couple of changes. I made some changes in the setting, I made some changes in the extension, and I want to upload these changes to my gist repository. How can I do that? Remember, I have to do Alt-Shift and upload. So when I do that, it says that ready setting and extensions, uploading file data, and these are the changes that we make, right? So now you should see R has been added to the extensions, and your setting JSON has been changed. You know, if there's a change in this setting. Okay, so this means that again, if you're on another computer, the latest version of the extensions and setting is going to be automatically downloaded on that computer as well. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, see you in the next one.